Здравствуйте! Мы с вами продолжаем изучение темы Separation of Powers. Одним из условий реализации принципа разделения властей является система сдержек и противовесов. Очень развита система сдержек и противовесов в Соединенных Штатах Америки. В этой стране принцип разделения властей проработан до мелочей. Даже способы формирования и срок деятельности каждой ветви кардинально отличаются, чтобы еще более отделить их друг от друга. А все вместе они контролируют действия и полномочия президента, которого можно снять с должности в рамках процедуры импичмента. Второй курс, 4-е занятие, 3-й фрагмент. Тема Separation of Powers. Exercise 1. Read and translate the text. Separation of powers. One of the reasons for having special constitutional laws is to prevent governments from becoming too powerful and interfering too much in the lives of individuals.
Одна из причин, по которым существуют особые конституционные законы, это не дать возможности правительству стать слишком влиятельным и чрезмерно вмешиваться в жизнь людей.
Socialist legal systems tried to define exactly what the state allowed citizens to do. Anglo-American law has been more concerned with defining what the state could do, arguing that citizens are entitled to do everything other than that which the state forbids.
Социалистические правовые системы пытались обозначить, что именно государство позволяло гражданам делать. Англоамериканское право больше связано с определением того, что может делать государство, утверждая, что граждане имеют право делать все, за исключением того, что государство запрещает.
As a check upon our powerful government, most constitutions have adopted the principle of separation of powers developed in the 18th century by the French political philosopher Montesquieu.
Для того, чтобы контролировать возможность правительства злоупотреблять властью, большинство конституций приняли за основу принцип разделения властей, разработанный в XVIII веке французским политическим философом Монтескье.
Montesquieu argued that the functions of the state could be divided into policy formulation and direction, executive, lawmaking, legislative, and interpretation and application of the law, judicial.
Монтескье утверждал, что функции государства можно разделить на формирование и направление политики, исполнительное, законотворчество, законодательное и толкование и применение закона, судебное.
To stop governments from becoming too powerful, these functions should be carried out by separate institutions, and there should be a balance between them.
Для того, чтобы удержать правительство от злоупотребления полномочиями, эти функции должны осуществляться отдельными институтами, и между ними должен существовать баланс.
The Constitution of the United States was expressly based on the separation of powers. The executive president, the legislature, Senate, House of Representatives, and the judiciary, Supreme Court, are discrete bodies.
Именно поэтому Конституция Соединенных Штатов базировалась на разделении властей: исполнительная власть, президент, законодательная власть, Сенат, Палата представителей и судебная власть, Верховный суд, являются отдельными органами.
Each body exercises the functions of powers through a complex system of checks and balances.
Каждый орган функционирует в рамках сложной системы сдержек и противовесов.
For example, the president is elected by the people and attempts to carry out his policy promises through the Presidential Office of Advisors.
Например, президент избирается народом и старается выполнять свои политические обещания через администрацию президента.
The Constitution gives him many important powers, such as control of the armed forces and appointment of Supreme Court justices, but many of his decisions And all new legislation must be approved by majority of the Congress, which is also elected by the people.
Конституция предоставляет ему много важных полномочий, такие как контроль над вооруженными силами и назначение судей Верховного суда. Но многие его решения и все новое законодательство должно быть одобрено большинством Конгресса, который также избирается народом.
The Supreme Court has the tasks of interpreting laws which have been disputed in lower courts and of deciding whether a law passed by the Congress or by one of individual states is in keeping with the Constitution.
Задача Верховного суда – толкование законов, которые были оспорены в судах низшей инстанции, и принятие решения о том, согласовывается ли закон, принятый Конгрессом, или одним из отдельных штатов с Конституцией.
Изучая иностранный язык, очень важно отрабатывать выученную лексику на практике, что мы и предлагаем вам сделать, прослушав диалоги. Let's practice. Exercise 2. Listen to the dialogues.
Do special constitutional laws allow governments to use their powers arbitrarily?
No, they don't. One of the reasons for having special constitutional laws is to prevent governments from becoming too powerful and interfering too much in the lives of individuals.
Both socialist and Western legal systems have the same approach in prescribing what their citizens have to do, don't they?
No, they don't. Socialist legal systems try to define exactly what the state allows citizens to do. Anglo-American law has been more concerned with defining what the state could do, emphasizing that citizens are entitled to do everything other than that which the state forbids.
When was the principle of separation of powers discovered?
The principle of separation of powers was developed in the 18th century by the French political philosopher Montesquieu.
What approach did Montesquieu offer to separate powers?
Montesquieu argued that the functions of the state could be divided into policy formulation and direction, executive, lawmaking, legislative, and interpretation and application of the law, judicial.
Can any branch of power in the USA function independently of the others?
No, they are not. But each body exercises the functions of powers through a complex system of checks and balances.
What tasks does the US Supreme Court have?
The Supreme Court has the tasks of interpreting laws which have been disputed in lower courts and of deciding whether a law passed by the Congress or by one of individual states is in keeping with the Constitution. Дорогие друзья, мы с вами закончили изучение темы Separation of Powers. Теперь вы знаете, что такое принцип разделения властей и как он реализуется в Конституциях. Следующий видеофрагмент поможет вам понять, насколько хорошо вы овладели лексикой по теме Separation of Powers, а также как работает принцип разделения властей в Соединенных Штатах Америки. Enjoy the English language. See you next time.
Have you ever wondered who has the authority to make laws or punish people who break them? When we think of power in the United States, we usually think of the president, but he does not act alone. In fact, he is only one piece of the power puzzle, and for very good reason. When the American Revolution ended in 1783, the United States government was in a state of change. The Founding Fathers knew that they did not want to establish another country that was ruled by a king. So the discussions were centered on having a strong and fair national government that protected individual freedoms and did not abuse its power. When the new Constitution was adopted in 1787, the structure of the infant government of the United States called for 3 separate branches, each with their own powers, and a system of checks and balances. This would ensure that no one branch would ever become too powerful, because the other branches would always be able to check the power of the other 2. These branches work together to run the country and set guidelines for us all to live by. The legislative branch is described in Article 1 of the U.S. Constitution. Many people feel that the Founding Fathers put this branch in the document first because they thought it was the most important. The legislative branch is comprised of 100 U.S. senators and 435 members in the U.S. House of Representatives. This is better known as the U.S. Congress. Making laws is a primary function of the legislative branch, but it is also responsible for approving federal judges and justices, passing the national budget, and declaring war. Each state gets 2 senators and some number of representatives depending on how many people live in that state. The executive branch is described in Article 2 of the Constitution. The leaders of this branch of government are the President and Vice President, who are responsible for enforcing the laws that Congress sets forth. The President works closely with a group of advisors known as the Cabinet. These appointed helpers assist the President in making important decisions within their area of expertise, such as defense, the Treasury, and Homeland Security. The executive branch also appoints government officials, commands the armed forces, and meets with leaders of other nations. All that combined is a lot of work for a lot of people. In fact, the executive branch employs over 4 million people to get everything done. The third branch of the U.S. government is the judicial branch and is detailed in Article 3. This branch is comprised of all the courts in the land, from the federal district courts to the U.S. Supreme Court. These courts interpret our nation's laws and punish those who break them. The highest court, the Supreme Court, settles disputes among states, hears appeals from state and federal courts, and determines if federal laws are constitutional. There are 9 justices on the Supreme Court, and unlike any other job in our government, Supreme Court justices are appointed for life, or for as long as they want to stay. Our democracy depends on an informed citizenry, so it is our duty to know how it works and what authority each branch of government has over its citizens. Besides voting, chances are that sometime in your life you will be called upon to participate in your government, whether it is to serve on a jury, testify in court, or petition your congressperson to pass or defeat an idea for a law. By knowing the branches, who runs them, and how they work together, you can be involved, informed, and intelligent.